I'm going to be honest with you. I gave up on the title of this video. I also, partly why I wanted to upload this is just so I could make a Simple Flips joke. Welcome to Veteran Build 2! Anyway, so the theme of new Havoc and these builds in general is that you actually have to think a little bit about team composition and what modifiers you're trying to directly counter. So if somebody's already playing Dueling Sword Bleed Vet, or you already have someone doing AoE dots and the bleeds aren't really helping that much, or if your team is just really struggling to kill bosses when they show up in packs of 2 or 3, well, what do you do then? You don't want to stay with Dueling Sword, Frag Grenade, Weapon Specialist. That's when you pull this out. So, Power Sword set up like this. Plasma Gun set up like this. Maniac damage is actually pretty important because it helps you extend the range of breakpoints against things like Flamers and Bombers, which you absolutely need to kill in one attack. Now that Revive Speed, and this is something I regret not mentioning or showing in the other build guides I showcased, Revive Speed should now just be called Assist Speed. It got changed to affect everything. Trappers, pulling people off ledges, rescuing them, and reviving them. So now the fact that it just does everything, and it's even stronger than before at 12% instead of 10%, which means you're getting like 60% of the effectiveness of one of these nodes, at least what used to be one of these nodes, just for free tagged on. I think it's undisputably the definitive third Curio perk now. So Curio's set up like this. And talents, because you aren't taking shredders. Oh, this shouldn't be here. Hold on. I'm spoiling the later part of the video. So cracks do something very particular in this build. Let me just build up mark target stacks. So remember how I said this build is mostly for if you're struggling with boss damage? Okay, well, this is what I mean by that. So you can do something like this, and reminder, in Havoc, bosses have 80,000, not 60,000 HP, and you can legitimately, like, do 75-80% of a boss's health in a couple seconds with just a few stabs of the Dueling Sword and or crack grenades. And so if you just look, the Dueling Sword, even without crits, can just absolutely shred these bosses. Now, when you're in a mission, you'll be critting far, far more often. You should also not really be shooting bosses, because as you can see, it's very expensive ammo-wise. It doesn't do a whole lot. So, the cracks are to help teammates with armor packs, which is like the most dangerous thing, but it's mainly for bosses, and don't forget that. Your main thing here is if you're nearing a boss trigger, just hold on to a cracks, because that really is what you're there to just eliminate. You don't need Serrated Blade with the Dueling Sword. You use Serrated Blade with the Dueling Sword to help with its pretty mediocre horde clear, but the Power Sword doesn't really have that. The Power Sword, you just activate and spam M1, and hordes kind of just die in one hit. Since you don't need Serrated Blade, there's no reason not to take Field Improvisation. I would love to take Superiority Complex, you just don't have points. You're forced into this. Grenadier is the weakest perk, and if you were going to drop a perk, you could drop Grenadier, however you want to pronounce it. You could drop this for Superiority Complex if you notice you're struggling to kill elites. But really, the only thing that's going to help you with is one-shot body-shotting elite scab gunners, which can really be important. So definitely at your discretion, but it will make the bossing worse. But honestly, the Power Sword is so good, you can probably afford to live with that. Another thing that pains me is we're not taking Fully Loaded, but instead of taking Fully Loaded, we're taking Agile Engagement. The reasoning being here that if you get one kill, and then this one kill enables you to consistently one-shot body shot gunners, 25% more ammo, which subsequently means 25% more ammo back on Survivalist and ammo boxes, is going to be less ammo in the long run than spending less ammo on everything you're trying to kill. That's kind of the logic here. So, Precision Strikes just gives more damage than Superiority Complex, and it gives that damage to specialists and bosses, which Superiority Complex doesn't do. So this ends up being like a 16, 17, whatever % damage increase. And the range of enemies it affects is a lot wider. you should really just be hitting precision headshots or weak spot hits in the first place as veteran. It's pretty important to his kit overall. So part of why we're doing focus target here is, one, you just kind of don't need weapon specialist if your team is going the hunker down and dot things in a choke point and hold your ground route. Though if you are using the dueling sword, the attack speed is still probably the best you're going to get overall, because you just want to chunk through the crushers. It's less necessary with the dueling sword. Let's put it this way. I'm sorry. The dueling sword benefits more from attack speed because it's already at the breakpoints where it's like killing everything in one hit. The power sword kind of needs focus target to consistently hit that, 2-tap breakpoint. Also, again, mainly for boss damage. It also helps that Bring It Down is right here, which again helps with the boss damage. And just to put this into perspective for you, to do what the dueling sword does, 6,500 DPS versus a crusher, the dueling sword just does that with weapon specialist and no Bring It Down. With the power sword, you need Bring It Down and focus target to consistently get that. Let me just take these away to show you what this is like without it. Yeah, you need like 2 activations, or like you need to do something like this. Yeah, see, you can't like you have to like reactivate because you can't do that. So the best DPS you're realistically gonna get, if you don't whiff this, is gonna be like in the 2,000 range. So the difference for the dueling sword in particular is pretty massive. It doesn't hurt to give your team extra damage, but if you're playing this setup, you're just kind of dedicating to doing like 80% of the team's boss damage. So like think about it. If you've got an Arbites and an Ogren and like a Flamestaff Psyker, well, who's dealing with the bosses? The Ogren is going to be like maybe doing 20% of his health. The Arbites might do 20% of his health. The Flamestaff Psyker isn't going to do shit for the most part. So the buck kind of falls on you to do most of the work there, which is fine. That's what this setup is for. Anyway, so agile engagement over fully loaded, because the extra damage helps with killing bosses, helps with one-shotting gunners. You could also drop skirmisher as well if you wanted to do something like this. This is also fine. So really, agile engagement, skirmisher, and possibly grenadier are 3 nodes that you could change at your discretion. But yeah, I think this is like an equally as powerful as the other setup I showed, but it focuses on completely different things. It's much less of a all-rounder per se. Like you'll have a harder time clutching with the power sword over the dueling sword because you just move less quickly. But you are able to drop bosses way faster. That's kind of the main appeal of this. Anyway, I'll probably talk about some alternate meta setups for the other classes, because I really cannot stress how Havoc is more about, oh, we got these modifiers. Because, like, for example, another thing you can do, you can drop cracks on this setup for smokes. Because you already have the power sword, which is good enough at dealing with armor, and it's good enough at dealing with bosses on its own, that say you need smokes. Because let's say you're on Silo Cluster and you need to cross that bridge of hell. Or you're in that one map where you have the long drop down or whatever, and it's just a giant open area. Basically, if you're playing a map that is a giant open area, and you already failed the map once because it was like a dreg seed and there's like 80 fucking million gunners, you can just drop the cracks for smoke. This setup is much more versatile in that it can accommodate more utility options, but it's less effective at just chunking through the pack. All right. That's all I really have to say about it.